Alright engineers, welcome back to OnShape. In today's demo, we're going to learn how to use a few more sketching tools. So we're going to look at tracing objects, so importing images and actually tracing those objects using a few different sketch tools. And we will end up with this really cool Batman logo. So let's go ahead and get started by first creating a new document in OnShape. We're going to go ahead, use the proper naming convention, so your class name, underscore the assignment name, so this assignment name is trace demo, underscore your last name. Alright, now, like I said, in this demo today, we're going to actually be tracing a Batman logo. So the first thing we need to do is actually go to the internet, find a Batman logo that we can trace, and then import it into our document here in OnShape. So for today, I actually have the Batman logo in the Google Classroom assignment, but in the future, you could just go to Google Images, find any one of these logos, and use that. But to do that, you have to download the image. So the first thing we need to do is go to the image and make sure we have it downloaded as a PNG file. And then once we have that, we can actually go into OnShape here and we can upload our image. So to upload the image, you click on the little plus sign down here that says Insert New Element, and then Import. And then we need to find it. Maybe it's in your Downloads folder. For me, it's going to be in my desktop. So I'll choose that file. You should see the Upload Progress bar pop up. And then when you see a little tab down here, you'll know that you have it uploaded correctly. This tab right here is not something that we can actually edit at all, but it's where the PNG file is stored in this document. So we can reference this and you'll see where we pulled into our actual sketch here in just a second. Alright, so we should be in our Part Studio 1, and we're going to be doing a sketch on the top plane. So just like as we've done before, we'll start by going to our top plane. We want to hide our front and our right planes. We're not going to be using those today. And then because we're going to be doing some tracing, we actually want to hide our origin today as well. So we'll hide that. So all we have is just this top plane sketching surface. And then we can actually import or insert the image into our document here by first creating a sketch. We'll create our sketch 1 on the top plane. So we need to click on the top plane. And then we go to this tool over here, except the DXF or DWG, those are blueprint files. We don't have a blueprint file, we have a PNG file. So we need to click on the drop-down menu, Insert Image, and then because we've already uploaded this to the document, you should see that there. Now, if you didn't do the step of uploading the image, then you need to do that or else it won't show up. So we'll select that, and then it says Draw an Image Rectangle. So we'll click and hold, and we can choose how big we want it for today. Not going to have any specific sizes, as long as it's big enough that you can end up tracing. That is fine. Now you can see that this image is nice and dark right now. That's great for us to be able to see, but if we're trying to trace it, it's going to be hard to see our line. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually create a second sketch on top of this image, and that's going to be the sketch that we actually use to trace. So we'll go ahead and confirm this sketch. And just so we don't get confused, we're going to name this sketch 1. We're going to rename it. So it's just going to be image. And we know that at the end, we want to take it out. We can just delete that sketch. So if you right click on sketch 1, you click on rename, we can name this image. And again, we're going to be creating a second sketch, so we'll know that we can delete the image sketch, and sketch 2 is what we're going to want to keep. So we'll create the second sketch by clicking on sketch. This one, again, is going to be on the top plane. So make sure you click on top plane. And now you can see that we have the image sketch that's behind, and so it's grayed out. And then we have our sketch 1 on top of it. So now we can actually do the tracing that we want to do to make sure that, we have this Batman logo and it's not the image, it's actually the outlines of it. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to trace is this outside edge. And if you notice, it's actually a perfect ellipse. So there's a tool in OnShape called the ellipse tool that allows us to create perfect ellipses. So if you click on the drop-down menu from the circle, there's the ellipse tool. And so it has you click 3 times. The first click is in the exact center of where you want to create the ellipse. The second click is to the left or to the right, so the outside. and then the third click is to the top or the bottom. So to find the exact center, we can use auto constraints. You need to hover over the top line until you see this yellow box. Now, I'm not clicking anything. I'm just hovering over it, and that yellow box is popping up. And then I need to, again, after not clicking at all, I didn't do anything. All I did was hover over until I saw the yellow box. I need to go over to the side and I need to do the same thing until that yellow box pops up. And now, when I go to the center of this image, you'll see, as I get close to it, both of those yellow lines pop up. And when both of those lines have popped up, when I click, I know it'll be in the exact center. So I'll click one time. If you remember, I said that the next click needs to be to the outside. So I'm going directly out using the horizontal auto constraint. I can zoom in to find the exact outside, make sure that that horizontal auto constraint's on, and we'll click again. And then the third click, like I said, is the top and the bottom. So I need to go all the way to the bottom, find that exact point, click one more time, and now we've got the outside. Okay, so the ellipse tool, again, it's 3 clicks. It's finding the center, then the left side, then the bottom. If you did those 3 clicks, you're good. Okay, now we want to create the inside of the outside border, and it's the exact same shape, so we can just use the offset tool, which takes our outline and just moves it either in or out. So we'll choose the offset tool, and then we'll choose our line. And then you can see it today decided to move it in. Sometimes it decides to move it out. Just depends on how big your image is and where you're clicking. But we want it to be on the inside, and we want it to be exactly on that inside part of that border. So you can click and drag, and then once you've got it where you want it, click once, and then your number will pop up. That's the exact number we want because we clicked and dragged. So then we press Enter on the keyboard, and now we see we have our 2 outside border lines. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to trace this Batman actual inside part of the logo. But if you notice, this image is symmetric. So instead of tracing the entire thing, we can just put a mirror line in, trace half of it, and then mirror it over, and it should look the exact same. So if you remember, to create a mirror line, we don't want it to be an actual line. We want it to be a construction line that's just used for reference. So we'll click on Line, and then Construction. And then as long as we're right in the center, so we can either use this auto constraint or we can use the center auto constraint. As long as we're set in the center here, all we need to do is click and go down vertical all the way through. And so it looks like our image is not exactly in the exact center here. So we're going to have to move it just a little bit out. But that's not a problem at all. We'll just do another line construction. We'll start where we know the exact center is, so right here. And then we'll just be able to go vertical up through. Okay, so now we know that's exactly in the center, and when we mirror it, it should be good. So we can press Escape, and then we can start to actually trace the right side or the left side of this Batman logo. So to do the tracing, we're going to use a new tool called the Spline tool. It's located right here, and what this tool does is it basically creates a line that's created with a bunch of curves that have multiple points. And so when you move those points, it moves the curve of the line. So there's a few things that you're going to have to pay attention to while we're going through this, so make sure that you're paying attention to these small points. Because we're going to be mirroring, the first thing we want to do is make sure that we're starting on our mirror line. So I'm going to be going to the right, tracing the right side, and I'm going to start by clicking right on that line. And then as we move to a corner, when you're using the Spline tool, you want to do 3 clicks. So you want to do 1 click right before the corner, 1 click on the corner, and then 1 click right afterwards. And if you do those 3 clicks for any corner, you're going to get those nice sharp curves that you want, and it'll allow you to have straight lines in between. So again, whenever we're approaching a corner, it's 1 click before, 1 click on, and then 1 click right after. And again, that allows us to get those really sharp points that we want. Okay, so now this is the use of the Spline tool. we obviously have some curves that are not straight lines. So we can add in multiple points here to trace these curves. We're going to have to do lots of zooming in and zooming out. Remember the rules of zooming in and zooming out, it all depends on where your cursor is. So if you're trying to zoom out, you need to move your cursor away from where you're trying to see. If you're trying to zoom in, you need to move it exactly on what you're trying to see. Okay, now, let's say you made a mistake, because that's going to happen from time to time. So say you accidentally click over here and you have some weird things going on. Do not stop. If you press backspace or if you press escape now, your line will completely go away. So do not stop. Just go back to where you were trying to do. And we can fix this as we go. So just keep on going. And again, we'll be able to fix that mistake after we finish the line. Okay, so remember those rules. As long as you remember those rules, then you can go through this on your own. And I'll fast forward the video to where we are done with our actual spline trees. Okay, so now as we approach the finish here, it's important to remember that if we started on that construction line, we need to end on that construction line. So to finish a spline, when we get to the very end where we want to finish, you need to make sure that you double click for the last point. So double click, and you'll see that your line turns into now a solid line. Okay, so now we need to go back and we need to fix this part. So in order to be able to fix any part, we need to unselect all of our tools. So pressing escape on your keyboard gets rid of your tools. And now we can go in and we can move these points. So I want to move these back to where they're right on this line. So I can go ahead and do that pretty easily. And then if I don't want all these spline points, so like I don't want this part here, I just want it to go directly from here to right here, I can click on the individual spline point, and either press delete, or you can right click and you can delete the sketch entity. And then you'll see that that spline point's gone. And now we fixed that little mistake that we had. Now, if there's any other errors, like we need, maybe we need to move these line in a little bit more, we can do that as well. And that's looking pretty good. Now, obviously, if this were like a final project, you would want to make sure that it is, perfectly lined up there. But for today, this looks pretty good for me. So I'm going to move on to the final step here, which is going to be actually doing the mirroring. So now that we have our mirror line and we have this part of the sketch here that we want to mirror over that line, the last thing to do is to choose the mirror tool. So select the mirror line. So we need to choose our mirror line first. And then once we've chose that mirror line, the next thing to do is to choose the entity to be mirrored. So select that line. Make sure you select the whole line, not just the individual points. And you'll see that that mirrors it over. And then we can press escape to get out of that. And now you can see we have this perfect traced image, and it is symmetric on both sides. So that looks good. Okay. Now, when you have the mirror line in, so this mirror line is still here. If I try to move one of these points, so let's say I want to move this point over here, maybe make it a little bit more in line. Watch what happens to the other side. Okay. So if I move this, it moves my other side as well. So you have to pay attention. If you want it to be symmetric, if you're trying to edit both at the same time, that's fine. But if you don't, if you just want to edit one side individually, what you have to do is you actually have to go in, delete the mirror line. So click on the mirror line and delete it. And now, if I want to edit just this left side, I can edit the left side and it won't affect my right side at all. Okay, so it depends on, again, like what you're trying to do. If you want it to be symmetric and you're editing one side and you want to edit the other side, then leave the mirror line in. If not, then delete the mirror line. And then when you're done, you can leave the mirror line in, you can delete it, it doesn't matter. As long as it's that construction line, it's not going to show up in anything that we actually print out. Okay, so that sketch looks good. We'll go ahead and confirm that to make sure it's there. And then remember, we had the image in the background. And now that we have the trace of the image, we can actually see what it's going to look like without the image in the background by just deleting the background. And that leaves us with our traced image, which looks great. We have Batman, we've got our ellipses on the outside, and if we wanted to extrude this, which we'll do in a future lesson, we could easily do that by just choosing our different sections to extrude. Now, I do notice that my sketch 1 is red here, and it looks like there's just a few external constraints that shouldn't be there. So it looks like somehow my auto constraint tool linked in my top sketch to that bottom sketch. So if I just click on the red constraints and press delete, then I have one up top, and I press delete, that should go away, and now when we confirm it, we have our regular sketch with no errors, and it's looking good. All right, we'll see you for the next demo.